All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. It is your favorite Jackson, and I'm joined by your favorite Peter and your favorite Nestling. Aren't you excited about that? Hello.
Hello.
Peter, you are muted.
Oh yeah, not even. I seem to have lost the ability to stream.
That's okay.
For people who have watched my show earlier,
Peter is a professional.
Yeah, for people who watched my show earlier, I did a show on the evidence for demons, and I think the demons have gotten to me to where I can no longer stream the way I should. But
That's
I'm
fair.
trying. I'm trying.
That's fair. So let's see. Who do we have? We have Dragon Spartan 90 official, Icarus, DM the Hirasso theorem wing, Ica radiometric pixel Russ, Alex Markel, Nan, and Katina. Hello, welcome everybody. Okay, so one tiny bit of news. I just passed 9,000 subscribers. So yay, go team. Look at us. We did this, guys.
You must be doing something right, or that wouldn't happen, would it? I mean...
Yeah. Oh, and there's Smitty. Okay, yeah, we did it. We passed 9,000. So now that means we get to sacrifice one of our lucky subscribers to Baal. You guys decide amongst yourselves who gets to be sacrificed. So, so let's see. So this show, I think, I was chatting with someone, with a person who might be our guest a little bit later on in the show. We'll see if he manages to show up. Regarding conspiracy theories, not like I wasn't arguing with him about it. We were agreeing that conspiracy theories are crazy, and that there needs to be better science communication, or science communication, science education, or just education in general to address these. And so I was reading a little bit about conspiracy theories kind of this morning and yesterday. And I have some papers that we can talk about a bit later on that have some interesting data on conspiracy theories that and sort of the neuropsychology of some conspiracy theories. So I think you'll be interested in some of those. So we, on this channel here at the Jackson Weed Incorporated, have dealt with conspiracy theories for a little while, about 8 years now.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Time sure does fly. Another year. The sort of the main one that we tend to deal with here is like a young Earth creationism, right? So one of the central beliefs of young Earth creationism, not the actual the tenets of it, like the Earth is 10,000 years old, there's a global flood and all that stuff. But one of the beliefs that tends to be held, I guess you might say, by pretty much the majority of creationists I think we've talked to on this channel, is that there is and certainly this idea is put out by like the Discovery Institute and Answers in Genesis, that there's a cabal, of scientists who mete out what is considered science, and if you don't fall within that, then you just don't get to publish, right? I think we've all heard that before.
Wasn't there a famous documentary made once?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Expelled. No Intelligence Allowed.
Yes.
Ben Stein's terrible movie.
Yeah. I think the title was Expelled, and then the subtitle more or less summed up the people who made it.
Yeah, it was like No Intelligence Allowed, right?
Yeah, that's
Expelled.
That's a conspiracy I hold to. No
Wasn't it? Yeah, no
intelligence was.
intelligence allowed.
Yeah, no
True.
intelligence was wasted on the making of this documentary. Nor was any
Just so you
honesty.
know, it has a 3.7 out of 10 on IMDb out of 12,000 votes. So not very well received.
Do we know the rating on Rotten Tomatoes?
Was it? I don't even know. I didn't expelled. Let's see. There's IMDb. Oh, oof, 11%. Yeah, not very well done. Of course, Expelled was kind of a forerunner of the Discovery Institute series that they did. They did a series of videos, kind of like, where they're it's got people in the like Guy Fawkes mask, and they're like, we're bringing you the truth about about science, about biology, about chemistry, or whatever, physics, and it proves that God is real, evolution is fake. The evil secularists have no morality; they eat babies or whatever. And so Ben Stein's movie was kind of the forerunner to that, which Professor Dave did a very good debunk of one of those videos, the one that was about Casey Luskin, which Casey Luskin just outright lied about Lucy. He claimed that Lucy's actual pelvis was reworked to look more bipedal, which was a lie, of course. That didn't happen. There was a cast that was made of her actual pelvis, and then that cast was reworked because it was broken when she
compressed.
died.
It was compressed in the rock, so it was completely deformed. And so I recall that particular piece of pseudoscience because they showed the people doing it, saying why they did it, then twisted it because reasons, I guess.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, it was basically, if you had tried to model how someone walked with the pelvis that she had, they wouldn't be able to walk, because like part of the hip was like compressed into the pelvis, right? So it was like, or into the spine essentially. So she wouldn't have been able to like move her legs. To walk.
You couldn't connect a leg to the hip bone. So that,
right, exactly, yeah. But it would have been impossible. So yeah.
I have a conspiracy, Jackson.
Okay, what is your
conspiracy theory I made up myself. If your source makes a strong emphasis on "we tell you the truth, we are about family, we are about facts, and we love science," those are red flags for people who are not concerned in any way, shape, or form by telling you the truth. They rather tell you lies. They're detrimental to your family, and there's no science to be found anywhere. And this goes for Twitter accounts, YouTube channels, websites, basically everything, because that's the hallmark, it seems.
Yeah. The only I think the only counterexample I've seen so far is Lisa for Truth. She's the only one who's not
fair enough.
But every single other one is, if it has truth or something like that in the name, it's not committed to truth at all. So
a guy who's standing comes to mind. We shall not name him, but I mean, another one.
Yeah. Yeah, that is another one. So, and I guess we'll start with like what I'm trying to think, like, how would you even define really when we talk about conspiracy theories, like what do we mean when we say that, for instance? So just here's Wikipedia's definition. So an explanation for an event or situation that asserts the existence of a conspiracy by powerful and sinister groups, often political in motivation, when other explanations are more probable. And I think broadly that's a decent explanation. certainly that applies to the creationism that we were talking about, where it's not that the scientists are right who work in these fields, for longer than the creationists have, who have actually contributed to them, who know far more about these topics. No, it's not that they could possibly be right. It's that they have to be wrong, and they're wrong, either because they like to sin,
Because
or
of an
they're
ulterior
afraid that
motive,
right, there's
basically.
some sort of ulterior motive.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're afraid that they won't get funding from the university if they don't toe the line, something along those lines.
They hate God, obviously.
Right, of course, right. Even when they are devout Christians and have been all their lives, they still hate God. So
Yeah.
Kenneth Miller, the famous atheist. Yes, exactly.
Right, or Mary Schweitzer, Robert Bacher, yeah, or Francis Collins, any of these guys, yeah. So in that sense, there's a conspiracy of like scientists who, for some reason, are opposed to creationism and the global flood. I can imagine that the creationists would say it's because Satan has hardened their hearts, or what have you, or they're making too much money. Someone else is paying them, I guess, to push these conspiracies.
I don't know if you recall this particular YouTube channel, but there used to be a YouTube channel called They. And they covered the things that they were accused of a lot. And so I thought I had to make sure that I was safe, so I made They an intro. And this was when they were calculating what it would cost to keep the flat Earth conspiracy going. The globe Earth conspiracy, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
So
sure.
they made a calculation of the costs to bribe people to hide this fact from us mere fallible humans. And they came up with a score that it would cost every single person on the planet $44,000 a year to keep this conspiracy going. So this would be...
And for what? What is the motive?
They said they would not. Yeah, they said they would not disclose their motive because they wanted you to know that you just needed to pay your $44,000 a year, and I was exempt for that 1 year because I made the intro. That was specified in the video. So, but I'm making a joke of this, but he did an actual calculation. And he didn't even include everyone that should be included, who needed to be paid off in order to make this work. And then, crap! Your big friend is in chat. I'm just saying.
My who?
You know who it is.
Oh well.
Another sock account. Not a sock account.
Guess what? Goodbye.
Yeah.
Again.
Tell Jesus.
It's so easy to hide you.
Tell Jesus to DM me on Twitter. That's the easiest way to get in touch with me, and we'll do a show together, and then we'll see.
But yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Nestle.
I was just like making the joke, like Peter says, "Oh, Jesus loves me, but he never calls me. When will he ever call me?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never returns any of my messages. Yeah.
Yes.
Never sends me mail on my birthday.
I feel stood up.
Yeah, that is actually one of my favorite responses to any conspiracy is, what's the point? Why are we engaging in conspiracy? And for the flat Earth, for instance, if it were true, or not even if it necessarily were true, if it were even just more useful to say that the Earth were flat, because it helped with, I don't know, like either like moving cargo or firing missiles or rockets or whatever, if it were even just more useful to say that the Earth were flat, then that would at least be a reason, right? But
Like
There
why
isn't.
is the airline companies wasting so much fuel
Right.
for
Yeah.
this? Yeah.
Well,
It could be
it's
because it would be cheaper, or there would be a shorter distance between certain parts of the Earth if the Earth were flat. If you took like an oblate spheroid and flattened it out, there would certain areas would be you'd have to fly to them like differently, right? And the problem would get worse the farther you got from the pole because everything's becoming more and more stretched out. So
yes,
yeah, airlines would have to take this into account.
because the airlines are not only hiding that, but also that planes fly on water, which would explain how you can get from Australia to South Africa in one flight, whereas there's no plane on the planet that could make that if the flat Earth map was correct.
Right.
So
Yeah. It would be much too far for a single passenger plane to fly, even at even if it were completely fueled up, it wouldn't be
yeah,
able to make it.
it couldn't
So
make it.
so you have to ask, what is the point? What is the reason? Oh, hey, Zach Hancock, hello. What is the reason for conspiracies? What is the point of hiding this? If is there are people going to work better? Are they going to be more like mentally pliable for some for like the government or something if the Earth is round versus if it's flat? I don't think there's any evidence to substantiate that. Are there better trade routes that are available if the Earth is flat? I don't think so. You just have to ask what would be the point, right? And there really isn't any.
I think the only benefit from a conspiracy theory is the one coming up with the conspiracy theory because he can look more interesting because now
Sure.
the entire world knows nothing about this, but I have the evidence. I figured it out.
Financial incentive.
Yeah.
I was about to bring that up. I feel like a lot of these guys are like I call it the Galileo Gambit syndrome. Now, if you know the Galileo Gambit, and you know what I mean. It's basically saying that I am the new Albert Einstein. I am the new Galileo, and I'm being oppressed by the status quo, basically. Yeah.
I wish I wish that was it, Nestle, because I think for the most part, and for some of the flat earthers, we know that this is the case. They're just making big money off of it.
Yes, fair. That's definitely true. So like in that case, in the case of the flat Earth, there are financial incentives to be right about the Earth shape. Airlines, shipping companies, the military, all of these entities need to know the shape of the Earth so that they can, most cost efficiently move across it. That's important to them. The same is true for oil companies needing to know the age of the Earth, because if the Earth is 10,000 years old, then we can dispense with all these radiometric dating methods, right? We don't need them because the Earth is not billions of years old. It's only a few thousand years old. And that, again, is going to be important for the bottom line of any oil company. So there's a financial incentive to be right about the age of the Earth as well as about its shape. There's no financial incentive to believe that the Earth is young, to believe that the Earth is old if it isn't actually, unless like just miraculously believing that the Earth is old somehow predisposes you towards finding things better by accident. I don't know.
It's a weird thing because they will tell you that but they need the Earth to be old because they want evolution to be true, which
and this is also the flat Earth say. They say that the flat Earth, or they hide the flat Earth because they want people to deny the Bible, basically, because they believe that the Bible says that the Earth is flat.
Well,
of course, most creation is dope. Yeah.
If you read it and you take it literally, the Bible actually says the Earth is flat.
That's true.
But then we have an ice wall. So what's behind the ice wall? because
We're
we're
not allowed to know. The government
No,
has to
but
prevent us from knowing.
we're also not allowed to know that the Earth is flat. So who sailed along the ice wall? I want to see a flat earther try that, because we've seen flat earthers make rockets on steam, and that didn't go well. Remember?
I actually have a coworker who went down to
Mhm.
Antarctica just a couple months ago. So did not see any ice walls.
But did he sail the entire ice wall across the Earth?
No, she didn't.
Oh yeah, see. Can't trust these
Nestle,
people
were you
who
saying
go
something?
there.
Oh, I was just tried to make a stupid joke about penguins being secret agents. That's how they
Yeah.
keep the ice wall in check.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Penguins-
Jackson, do
penguin-
you remember the first time, or roughly the first time, when you interacted with somebody who like believes a conspiracy theory?
The first time,
Or maybe you like what was the
typically-
oldest memory you have? The oldest memory you
the
can
oldest
recall.
memory I have of interacting with, my interest in the whole like creation debate stuff started in 2014, actually, with the Nye Ham debate. Because I was in, I think I was in junior year. Nope. No, sorry. Was I or sophomore? I think I was in sophomore year of high school.
I might be able to make a mention of a conspiracy theory that you might not realize that you've heard of long before that.
Well, I'm sure you can. But
JFK.
I can do one also.
JFK.
But well, we'll get to that.
Okay.
So yeah, I think the Nye Ham debate was the first time that I was exposed to young Earth creationism as Answers in Genesis presents it, and then kind of so that was my first foray into it, and I got interested, and then it just kind of went. I started reading about it, kind of shortly thereafter, and then once I started college in 2016, so fall of 2016, that was when I started this channel, and then it just took off from there. So I do know one funny one that I didn't know was a conspiracy theory until fairly recently, and that was the like carrots are good for your eyesight. You guys have probably heard that one.
Yes.
I didn't know that was British propaganda against the Nazis in World War II.
Well, you say that, Jackson, but have you ever seen a bunny with glasses?
I haven't.
You don't. See? It must be true.
Like I don't get it. Like why is it a conspiracy against the Nazis?
It was sonar. It was like they had like sonar technology, and the Germans were like, how are they able to detect whatever it was? And the British propaganda was like, it's because our soldiers are very good at seeing at night because they eat lots of carrots and it helps them see better. And so that just kind of went on. Now, of course, in some sense, right? I mean, there are certain there are like antioxidants in carrots, but I mean, antioxidants are good for most parts of your body, so they're going to be good for your eyes also, I guess, in that sense. But
well, it's also like more. It refers to the precursor to vitamin A, and vitamin A is like the compound in your the opsin protein, basically that that reacts with the light, and that's why. Yeah, but it's really funny that they actually managed to convince the Nazis about that. Like, oh yeah, our soldiers.
I don't know if they convinced the Nazis, but they convinced the rest of us, didn't they?
Yes.
Carrots are. Yeah, I didn't know that. I heard it.
The real Ubermensch eats carrots. Yes.
I was watching a show. This was like a few months ago now, but he mentioned that, and I was like, no, that can't be right. And so I looked it up, and I was like, well, holy crap, that's correct. I didn't know that. Big Food is trying to convince you that carrots are good for your eyesight. Funny enough, actually, there are papers on like Big Food that reference it, but in a different context. It's really more related to how sugary and fatty foods are, and how they're how a lot of times foods that are very high in sugars or fats are maybe the only like cheap option available for people, and so there's a big food in that sense. But anyways, um, so anyway, so look, I want to talk for a moment about like actual conspiracies because
Yeah.
there are actual conspiracies, right? So 9/11 was perpetrated by an actual conspiracy of Al Qaeda terrorists, right? So in that sense, there was a conspiracy, and they carried out a particular set of actions against the United States. Okay, so that is a real conspiracy. Or another one would be that yeah, so Volkswagen conspiring to cheat emissions tests for their diesel engines, the U.S. National
Oh yeah.
Security Agency secretly spying on civilian internet users. I don't know if you guys are, if anyone's familiar with that, but that was what Edward Snowden became famous for. Was he leaked a bunch of documents to 3 reporters in Hong Kong, showing that there were like Stellar Wind was the name of, I think, the main program that was used by the U.S. government to spy on their civilians.
The Americans spying on internet users. So, what I forgot to mention before we went live, I cannot show comments from the chat on screen because for some reason the firewall of the server that we're using to do that has completely crashed, and there's no way to get it fixed. So I think that conspiracy, it might be a thing. So maybe they broke in and want to read our YouTube chats. Could be a thing.
That certainly could be a thing. Yep. Yes, FBI agents need to like and subscribe, and so do the rest of you watching.
Yes.
Get us to 10,000 subscribers. Yes.
Exactly. Let's go. Let's get there.
Let's do this. But it is also funny that you mentioned about like a real conspiracies. Of course, we should always be aware that the term conspiracy theory doesn't imply that there are no conspiracies or there have never been conspiracies. And it's also a funny thing about this is actually one of my oldest memories I have when I'm interacting with a conspiracy theorist. I don't exactly what conspiracy they were arguing for. It may have been like flat Earth, or it may have been chemtrails. I'm not sure about that. But I remember one point he asked me like, "Oh, do you just blindly trust the government about anything?" And I say like, of course not. I know that the government can propose or push bullshit, but it doesn't mean I have to accept your bullshit. And I brought up one specific example about like I know that the government can lie. Like I know about Watergate, for example, and believe it or not, the guy replied to me saying, "What is Watergate?"
Really? Wow.
Yes.
Was this an American you were talking to, or?
I have no idea. Like, also, I think it was like on the YouTube comment section or something many years ago. Many years. Yeah.
Also, fun fact, Nestle, the fact that they asked you whether or not you trust the government. You're Dutch.
Yes.
We're famous. We ate our prime minister. That happened. That actually happened.
Oh, I remember that like a few hundred years ago or something like that. Yeah.
So the government should be more concerned with trusting us than the other way around.
Very true.
Yes.
We took the phrase "eat the rich" a bit too far, maybe.
Hey, that's actually, you didn't take it far enough. But Smitty points out, are Americans more or less likely to know about Watergate? That's very fair, actually, Smitty. You make a good point. My mistake. But anyways, actually, there was a very funny meme I saw. I think it's been several weeks now, but it basically said, "You guys remember the submarine that took the billionaires down to the Titanic and it imploded?"
Yes.
Someone pointed out that submersible has done more for financial equity than anyone on this planet has. So,
oof.
Anyways, any rate, so yeah, so or another one, another really good one is that the tobacco industry deceiving the public about the harmful health effects of smoking.
Yes.
And there's a very good book by Oreskes and was it shoot, I think it's Naomi. I can't remember what her name is. Anyway, the book is called Merchants of Doubt. Hold on, let me Merchants.
But there's also a movie.
Yeah. Naomi
called that too, yeah.
Oreskes and Eric Conway. Yeah, and there is a movie. Yep, it's a 2014 American documentary film by Robert Kenner. So, which is probably based on the book, huh?
There's also one funny line that lives rent-free in my head. The state of Vermont will not apologize for its cheese. That's like one funny line from that movie. I remember.
Yeah.
Like it was like the main character, the lawyer in defense of the tobacco industry, made the argument that if Americans are free to eat cheese, even though it causes like obesity and such, then they should also be free to smoke tobacco. And then like the governor of Vermont was like, the state of Vermont will not apologize for its cheese. That's a really funny line.
That is pretty funny.
Yeah.
I personally if people want to smoke, have at it. They can smoke whatever they want. I really am all for legalization of drugs, and I say we let Darwin handle the rest. So yeah, I'm totally on board with that. But obviously, like, it wasn't just that, they were saying people aren't allowed to smoke. It was that the issue was the tobacco industry was lying about the effects of smoking. So they were saying like, smoking is fine. In essence, what had happened was around, I think it was 1950, I believe, the first like major or large scale, I should say, studies about the effects of smoking on lungs were published. And following that, because it had been implied by several small scale studies prior, since like the late 1800s, that maybe there was a link between tobacco and lung cancers. But it wasn't until these papers came out in 1950, there were a couple of them, that really the link suddenly became very large. And the tobacco industry responded by putting out a little pamphlet essentially that said, "We take the health of our patrons very seriously." So,
it got worse because Camel advertised in the US with actual physicians saying how good Camel was for you, as opposed to other brands of cigarettes.
Right. And nowadays, like, they lost that battle, right? The evidence came in so strongly for it, and they lost both legally and in the court of public opinion, that now almost no one, I do know one, like, smoking causes cancer denier. I have met one person who denies that link. I did actually. Funny enough, it was a history professor, which made it even funnier. It was an American history professor.
Like, on what grounds did he say it? Like, is he like, tobacco is natural, so it cannot be harmful because it's natural, or something like that?
So we're in class, and I don't even remember what we were talking about. Funny enough, this was right before COVID. Also, this was the semester COVID hit. So this is spring of 2020. And he says, my grandfather smoked every day for 65 years, whatever. And so, I don't think there's really a link between smoking and cancer or something like that.
And that's one. Nice. That's one statistical mistake that many people make. Like, it's like, if I'm not mistaken, I've seen this fact. Maybe I think it's true. They say that most smokers don't get lung cancer. That's still true, but proportionally, among smokers, a higher percentage will get cancer compared to non-smokers, basically. And that is the connection many people fail to make. And that's why you get people like those saying like, "Oh, I have my grandfather who smoked all his life and he never get cancer." Yeah, you can have that, of course.
As someone who's trying to kick the habit but can't, I'll have you know that you can ask any butcher anywhere on the planet, and they will tell you that any kind of smoked meat will last longer than non-smoked meat.
Mhm.
I'm just saying.
Thank you, Peter. We do not endorse smoking on the show.
No, we don't. But I mean,
We're gonna get hit with like terms of service by YouTube. Anyway,
If you pickle yourself, you will live forever.
that's true.
yeah, smoked and
Very
pickled.
true.
Smoked and pickled. That would work.
So the tobacco industry attempted to respond to the, I don't know if you would call them allegations, whatever, the technical research that was starting to come out, pointing out that you are on average more likely to get lung cancer if you smoke. And they responded to that by paying some scientists to lie. They paid political pundits to downplay the effects. It was a massive PR campaign to downplay and completely ignore the effects of smoking on lung health. And of course, we see the exact same thing played out with regard to climate change research. And in fact, the book that I mentioned, Merchants of Doubt, which I guess I'll put that here in the side chat so everybody can see it. Merchants of Doubt.
Mm-hmm.
The book compares that the methodology of the tobacco industry to the methodology of the oil, or I guess I should say fossil fuel industries today, in attempting to downplay the effects of burning fossil fuels, thereby causing global warming and ocean acidification. And I mean, we
and also lung cancer and lung disease and heart
right,
disease,
yeah,
the particular matter and such. Yeah.
right, exactly. Exactly.
It's also frustrating to realize that like the oldest one of the oldest research that found the effects of fossil fuel burning on climate was conducted by the fossil fuel industry, and they just kept it quiet. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was in, I believe, if I remember correctly, I believe it was in 1977 was when I think it was Exxon, or they had commissioned a team of their own researchers to look at what the effect of burning fossil fuels was on the atmosphere, and the researchers came back with, hey, here's all this data. It looks like we're warming the planet. Funny enough, I believe it was like Arrhenius also, who had in like the late 1800s also implied a link. Or sorry, no, I don't think he knew that it was fossil fuels, but he knew that the Earth was warmer than it should have been, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, have you heard of that? Arrhenius, global.
Arrhenius.
Yes, here it is. Yeah, here's the paper. Savante Arrhenius on the influence of carbonic acid in the air upon the temperature of the ground. That's what it was. Okay. I can't believe there's like you can find the whole PDF. That's crazy. Here it is. So that paper was published in 1896. So I was wrong. Okay. So he acknowledged that carbon dioxide participates in global warming. Back in the late 1800s. So this was already starting to be noticeable back then. I remember the Industrial Revolution, which is responsible for our current anthropogenic climate change, started in like the turn of the 19th century. So early 1800s. And we talked about this in a video we did 3 years ago on this topic. Good Lord. Which was titled, Is the Earth Warming? And in that video, we pointed out how there's kind of a debate on where exactly should you put the line for like where do we start considering a like an unnatural or anthropogenic rise in carbon dioxide in the Earth's atmosphere, because there's a bit of a debate because it kind of depends on where you are on the Earth and all that sort of stuff. But the Earth is definitely warmer now than it should be because we keep putting carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, and that is causing an increase in temperature, as well as other things like because carbon dioxide increases in the atmosphere, it therefore also dissolves into the ocean at a greater rate, and therefore causes the dissolution of animals who have like calcium carbonate skeletons or tests. So there's a lot of different things that result. It's not just heat. There's a lot of different factors that all kind of play into this.
Yes.
Or a lot of different effects. So, it's okay. So the fossil fuel industry is paying mostly political pundits. There really aren't that many scientists nowadays, at least as far as I'm aware, who are out here pushing, against climate change. It just impacts too many different fields of research, right? Like
I also remember, of course, the tobacco industry hired scientists to lie. That is true. And I also remember, do you know the story about the leaded gasoline?
No, tell me.
Yeah.
Oh, back, I don't know exactly how many years back, but it was like a problem with cars. It was they had a low power basically, and they found a way to increase the power by turning up. I don't know the details, but
I do. So
yes.
adding lead to gasoline was another form of lubrication of the engine, and that would also
it's an anti-knocking agent. Yeah,
yes,
an anti-knocking agent.
Yes. Fun
it
fact.
It prevents from the.
Fun fact. Do you know who came up with that idea, Nestle?
No.
The same guy who came up with Freon in refrigerators.
Oh yeah. Also the same guy.
This guy single-handedly tried to kill the entire planet with his inventions.
Pretty much, yeah.
So that's another conspiracy theory for you right there. Why did he do it?
They also and the industry behind the leaded gasoline also hired scientists to basically oh no, lead in the environment is just natural, basically. Yeah.
Right. And at this point, obviously it does happen because the book that we're going to go through once we finish the Ancestor's Tale eventually is by a geologist named Gregory Wrightstone, who works for the fossil fuel industry. I know, shock and awe. But climate change covers so many different fields, right? It doesn't just cover. It's not like it's just climatology, right? It also covers ecology and biology and evolutionary biology and you have different fields of chemistry and physics that are all involved in this. Even geology, like paleoclimatology, is a field where you can look at layered materials like stalactites and stalagmites. You can look at corals. You can look at tree rings, and you can see, as well as ice cores, you can see how the atmospheric composition or the oceanic chemical composition has changed over time. It's I really don't see too many scientists arguing against it. It's almost always political pundits who, of course, don't know anything. So those are typically the only people I see who argue against climate change, and of course they're paid big money, and you can follow the money, of course, on these things, right? So if you go to say PragerU, for instance, PragerU is funded by the Koch brothers, or I think it's just brother now. I think one of them died.
Yeah.
There's also the Heritage Foundation. There's the there's several. There's like three of them. The Cato Institute. That's another one.
What's the guy behind Fox News? Rupert Murdoch or
Murdoch? Yeah.
No,
Rupert Murdoch. Yeah.
And is Murdoch also a fossil fuel guy, or I'm not sure.
I don't know about him in particular. I wouldn't be surprised. I certainly wouldn't be surprised, but I'm not sure. I can't say for certain.
There's also something we're also now dipping into one particular pattern regarding conspiracy theories. They are not always, certainly, but they are mostly on one side of the political spectrum, on the right. Yeah.
Well, so I would kind of disagree with that. I'll give my reasoning for that. So I I think today, largely yes. Um,
Yes.
all
Like
those,
vaccines have switched, yeah, mostly. They were on the left,
yeah,
but now
yes.
vaccines on
So
the right, yeah.
vaccination was like the only like left conspiracy. It's now pretty much owned by the right. But aside from that, yeah, I mean, like young Earth creationism is almost entirely on the right. Um, yeah, we said anti-vax is totally on the right. Gosh, what else is there? You don't really see flat Earth so much politically divided. Well, of course, anti-climate change. That's another one that's almost
Mhm.
totally on the right. But
It's they will often say like it's like a communist or socialist conspiracy theory to destroy the
sure,
economy.
right, of course. Which, yeah, yeah. George Bush said that, and then Trump said it years
Yeah.
later. Yeah. Which
Is 9/11 conspiracy theory still on, like it's mostly on the left, right?
I genuinely don't. I don't think so. Like I don't.
Like
I
it's like it was more like an anti war also narrative, right? Like they like these people believe that the 9/11 was a false flag to justify war, basically, right? So it's more like left wingish, I would
I
say.
genuinely don't know any left wing people who actually hold to that. Um, and that's just me. I could be totally wrong, but
Yeah.
I
Of course,
personally don't know
of
any
course,
left
the
wing
war
people who
was.
hold to
Of course,
those.
the war. In either case, the war was not justified. That
Oh,
followed.
sure,
Yeah,
of
yeah,
course. I
of
mean,
course. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, oh heck, that's another one. For Iraq, the weapons of mass destructions lie.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yes.
another conspiracy. Um, the idea that I mean, we went to war because there was this claim that there are weapons of mass destruction. They're going to be used against us or against the whole world. I mean, heck, there was even that movie by Matt and Trey Parker. Was it Team America? I think was what it was called. Which also, have you guys seen it? Team America.
No.
No.
It's the guys who did South Park. They made this like movie with dolls. But that movie hinged heavily on like the weapons of mass destruction, falling into the hands of the enemy
Oh
and
yeah, yeah. It's the America. F yeah.
yes, that one. Yeah, that's where that
That's
came
the
from. Yeah,
movie. Yeah.
yes,
Now
that's
I
where that came from.
remember. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but like that was it was a lie, right? There never were any weapons of mass destruction, and some people say nowadays like, oh well, they just hid them really well. Okay, sure they did. They
Yeah.
hid the weapons of mass destruction that they had. Team America World Police. There we go. Thank you, Smitty. Um,
Yeah.
oh, anti-GMO. I forgot about that
Yes.
one. Although
That's
I have also seen that on the left. I have seen anti-GMO on both sides. On the left, it's often the like the very hippie people who are like I don't want to poison my body. Which actually, I guess we can talk about that right now. The anti-vax movement kind of grew out of the all natural sort of movement in
yeah.
part. So you had the people who were against GMOs and things like that. So you have people who are against us messing with the genomes of plants and stuff, which and hybridizing and whatnot, which is very funny. And The War on Science by Sean Otto, also a very good book. I'll put that in the chat. The War on Science.
It's like if you it's like sometimes there's an overlap between the political spectrum, but the
Sure.
reasons that they cite for those are different. Like the left ish
Mhm.
people will say like, "Oh, I'm not putting poison in my mouth. I'm a
Yes.
natural guy, and I won't stick poisonous stuff in my body with the needle." But
Right.
the right wing are more like anti-government mandates and such.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. Right. There's
Yeah.
different reasons for it. And I'm sure there's probably some overlap in terms
Yeah,
of
yeah.
reasoning. Like I don't want my, the vaccine causes autism or what have you. But yeah, so in addition to people, or actually, sorry, I didn't finish my thought earlier. The War on Science
Sorry.
points out that, oh, it's fine. That when you take a single gene from like one organism and put it into another, you're actually changing the genome of that plant, for instance, less than hybridizing two plants. So, like, and we think of hybridizing as a natural thing, but that changes the genome more than just taking one gene and putting it in another plant. Like, that's, and I just think that's very funny. I never thought about it that way. But yeah, so the all natural sort of movement that I don't want to put poison in my body. When it came out that DDT was poisoning the environment, thanks to Rachel Carson's book, Silent Spring.
Yes.
That also, I think, in some ways, kind of helped fuel that movement. Which it's good that that book exists and pointed out that DDT, is harmful. But I think in some sense, it also kind of put in the back of people's mind, like, hey, what else are we being poisoned with? It's like once you're aware of one thing, you start thinking about it in other contexts, And so
Not always
so that
true,
may have
though.
also helped. Oh, sure. I mean, that's not
mean,
always true, sure, but
what you mentioned, the GMOs, right? A lot of young Earth creationists are still peddling that particular one. That's dangerous for you. So these are the people who think that everything was intelligently designed, and then the things we intelligently designed to eat are dangerous.
The banana, the famous creation of God.
Yes.
Right, yeah. Or broccoli, as Kent Hovind said more recently. Yeah.
I always tell people that the banana plant is the only plant that can actually walk and does walk, and that is because they want to get away from young Earth creationists who tell them that it was created by God. But yeah,
that is true, by the way. That is a verified fact.
Yes.
I'm also reminded of the movie called have you seen Dark Waters? Starred by Mark Ruffalo, I believe. As the
I've heard of it. I've not seen it.
It's about PFAS, polyfluorinated hydrocarbons, I believe it's pronounced.
Which?
Basically, these stuff are used to make Teflon, for example.
Wait, is that the stuff
forever? They are also called forever chemicals. Forever chemicals.
And
is that
if you're Dutch, that's a hot topic at the moment because they keep finding that in nature all over the entire country. In higher
all over the world. It can be found all over the world, basically. Yeah.
Yes, but where we live, Nestle, it's in higher concentrations than they would expect. I mean, this has been in the newspapers for the past 2 or 3 weeks. So, yeah.
What was the stuff that was causing the hole in the ozone? Which one was that?
Oh, that's Freon.
That was Freon.
Oh, that was chlorofluorocarbon. That's right.
Chlorofluorocarbon. That's a different compound.
Yes. Well, when you said that, it put in my mind, and I was trying to remember what the actual chemical was. Yeah. So
basically, the chemical company DuPont makes these PFAS. They are very tough chemicals, and they are used to make, for example, one application is the Teflon on your frying pans, basically. Yeah, and they found DuPont themselves found out that it had a negative effect on people, but they also hid it.
They hid it, right?
Yeah,
right. Yeah, we would hate for anything to impact our bottom line or something like that.
Yeah,
yeah.
The whole Teflon thing is another conspiracy theory because it's a non-stick thing, right? How do they get to stick it to the pan exactly? Just think about it before you believe it.
I will think about it. Anyway.
We have now also mentioning many actual conspiracies.
Yes.
And versus bogus conspiracy theories. Maybe it's also a good thing to discuss how to recognize the difference between the two.
So actually, there's an article by UNESCO that I was reading about, and they were talking about this difference. I put it here in our side chat. So in conventional, if you're just thinking about, if you're given an idea, any idea, it doesn't have to be a conspiracy theory, just any idea. If you're given, something, you can use healthy skepticism with response to it. And skepticism in general, I think, should be I think we all kind of view skepticism in proportional to the kind of belief that we're given, right? If it's something very mundane, if you say like, I got a new dog, well, okay. I mean, unless, you might ask like, hey, can I see the dog? But usually when you ask that, you're not saying like, I don't believe you. You're just asking to see it.
Yeah.
And additionally, like being responsive to very cute.
Hey, you asked for it. You wanted to see the dog, right?
I did ask. Now he's gonna be running around.
Now my dog's mad with me because he was sleeping, and he's looking at me. What the hell was that for?
Now he's gonna start jumping on you.
No.
Also, being responsive to evidence. So if you say one thing and then someone says, no, that's not true, here's the evidence as to why it's not true, then, well, of course, that gets into how do you evaluate that evidence. But in general, if, we're not going that deep with stuff in our day-to-day life. If you say like, oh, hey, I thought I had an appointment for my dentist on Tuesday, and your dentist shows you the calendar and says, no, you scheduled it for Monday. Okay, well, you're going to change your beliefs based on the evidence. It turns out you just forgot or, misremembered, what have you. And then striving for coherence. And I think that one's pretty interesting because conspiracy theories are often mutually contradictory. And a lot of times a person will hold two like completely contradictory conspiracies in their head at once. One of my favorite channels is Creation Myths. It's Dr. Dan. And one of the things that he does is he does a series that's like he'll pit two different creationist ideas against each other. And in doing that, he shows that they both cannot be true simultaneously. One of them has to be false for the other to be true because they argue, completely opposite things. Right? So like one was like created heterozygosity versus like the mutational like hotspot thing, right? So on the one hand, creationists are like, oh no, mutations generate lots and lots of of variations, or they have organisms undergo periods where they have like lots and lots of mutations, and this allows them to adapt to their environment. Whereas on the other hand, lots of creationists argue for like created heterozygosity, where there was a lot of variation initially that got kind of separated and weeded out into separate populations. But these can't both be true. Like there has to be, it has to be one or the other. Either you got the variation at the beginning, or you got it like more recently. It can't be both.
Right.
Or you would need some way to figure out like which one is true. Right. And so he does videos like that, and they're really cool. I really enjoy them. Highly recommend his channel, of course. So in conspiratorial thinking, though, there is always an overriding suspicion. So any evidence you have, regardless of what you present, it's always rejected. So
it's a self-defeating almost. Like any evidence against the conspiracy is interpreted as evidence for the conspiracy.
Right.
Yeah.
I just did a show on evidence for demons, and so while I was talking to this guy, he came up with a video where he said we can show that. So he had that unlisted on his channel, so he shot me a link. I downloaded it, put it into OBS, and we watched it together. And then people in the chat, because I hadn't seen it, this was from the Discovery Channel, well-known source of good science. So I hadn't seen it before. People in chat had. Turns out this, what he said was part of a documentary, isn't a documentary. It's one of these documentaries that Discovery made. I mean, they made one about mermaids. I think I can recall that, which looked like a real documentary, right, with footage and everything. They also did one on demons, and a friend of mine, Jen with one N, shot me the link to the IMDb page, which lists all the actors that played in the documentary with their real names and the characters they played in the documentary. And he still said, well, it was based on real stories. And then I had to explain that stories aren't facts. Those are two different things. The fact that it's listed as science fiction on IMDb should give you a clue that there's a fiction part involved in all of this. But he completely refused. He said, yes, but there could still be parts in it that are actually real and are
There's
good
a kernel
evidence.
of truth.
So
Right,
you
right.
can't win. I showed him literally everything. Up until when he told me that there was a guy who had a PhD in demonology from a accredited university, which I didn't want to believe. And turns out this guy said this on Huffington Post. That's where he wrote an article saying that he had a PhD in demonology from an accredited university. And then when I went to his own website, which makes no mention of it at all. It does mention that he has PhDs, but he has PhDs in English, and he has one in theology from the University of Wu, I think. I can't recall the university, but I mean,
Oh no.
oh,
Great, my camera.
this is
I don't know why this
another
happened.
conspiracy. When
I
we're
don't know why this
about
keeps happening.
when we're about an hour in our live shows, Jackson freezes. Is this natural, or do we have another explanation?
Maybe if you go like rejoin.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll try that. I'll just refresh it.
StreamYard and then and join again. Perhaps it will work.
that should work. I have
Like last time he did. Like last time he went backstage and then back again. So maybe this will work. Yeah, it worked. All right.
he's moving
Well, it
again.
works for now.
He's moving.
Let's
Oh,
see. Okay.
Yes.
That's so weird. I don't know why this keeps happening. That's very weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely demons. Can confirm.
It's like one person brought up like one good example about how presenting evidence against the conspiracy is immediately interpreted as evidence for the
Yes.
conspiracy. It's like flat Earth. Oh, the pictures are from NASA. Oh yeah, of course they would show pictures from space. Do you believe those pictures? Yeah, it's always
Right.
it's always that case.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I like that example, Peter. I think that was very good. Very funny example. But yeah, we're all familiar with stuff like that. You know, I'm pretty sure we've seen stuff like that in our creationist debates.
It's also
I did think
it's also, and this also came up in my chat earlier. He said, well, we have testimonies of people, and I said that's the weakest form of evidence you can have. And he said, well, if people see it, then it must be true. So I got out my deck of cards and I told him I would riffle through it and he should stop at the 8 of hearts, which he obviously did. And then I put the rest of the cards on top, and the 8 of hearts was on top again. And I told him, you're looking at this, right? I'm showing you the cards are different. But you can't pick a different card. You're always going to stop at the 8 of hearts. So now you're looking at it. You know it can't be this way, but it is. And he could dismiss that too. So I don't know. I mean, it's real. I can do it. I can do it right now. So I can get a deck of cards.
Peter's going to show us his magic on stream.
Oh, it's the second time today. So I will show you. Cards are all different, right? You can see that. I will riffle through it. Jackson, you say stop.
Stop.
Okay, you said stop there. Can you tell me what card that is? It's the 8 of hearts.
Is it the 8 of hearts?
It's the 8 of hearts. So when I do this and I put the rest of the deck on top and I flick it, there's your 8 of hearts. And the second card, I need to show that, is not the 8 of hearts. Just so you know, because the cards are different.
Is this how you?
It's a
Is
bit,
this
it's
how
a
you
bit,
pick up
it's a
women,
bit
Peter?
obviously
So-
witchcraft.
So
Obvious.
this is how you can show people that what they're seeing isn't actually what they're seeing, because even though the 8 of hearts is on top, if I cut the cards, put the other part on top, you will still have the 8 of hearts on top. And I can do this over and over. I can do it better. So I'll make 3 stacks, right? I've got 3
All right, Peter, send me those cards, and I will
Three.
shuffle them, and I'll send them back.
3 stacks. On top of this one, oh, there's a different one. Okay, so I can mix it up. Apparently, I have no clue, but just to make things more difficult, if I do it this way, they're all 8 of hearts. So never mind.
I love it. At any rate,
This is why you cannot trust what people see. You need some kind of independent verification. You need a scientific method in order to determine that what you see is exactly what is happening. And I think
Yeah. I definitely you need independent verification for everything. The paper kind of continues with it talks about why do people find conspiracy theories so intriguing, and one of them, the first one, is a feeling of powerlessness.
Oh,
So
yeah.
people who feel powerless or vulnerable are more likely to endorse and spread conspiracy theories, and that's very fascinating to me, because I think this is probably why COVID conspiracies were so popular,
Mhm.
right? It's very difficult to conceptualize a virus just mutating and becoming extremely pathogenic. That's hard to think about, right? Like it could happen at any time, literally any time.
Mhm.
Like any day, there could just be a virus that, due to some unlikely string of mutations, for instance, becomes highly pathogenic. That just could be a thing, and it does
Yeah.
happen. And that's hard to wrap our brains around, because you think about how many viral particles there are on Earth at any given time. How many nucleotides are there collectively in all those viral particles? And so, like, how many different, do the math on that, right? Like, how many different combinations is that? So what are the odds that you could get something like that? And it's probably pretty high, I would imagine. Even a very low probability mutation becomes like virtually inevitable at some point.
I remember that viruses outnumber cells 10-1. Like cells,
Yeah.
like bacterial cells, eukaryotic cells, they
Mhm.
outnumber us 10-1. So it's even a very unlikely event like that is bound to happen at least sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that can be kind of scary. Just
Yeah.
thinking about that.
It's also
That's understandable.
It's also something to do with like the you mentioned the JFK assassination, and you can also compare that to the failed assassination attempt at Ronald Reagan, I believe, right? Like he was almost assassinated,
Yes.
because that one failed and had low impact. Like not many people were like, that's probably a conspiracy theory. It's only when you have like a major event like the successful assassination of a president, where people like only one gunman did that successfully, only one person.
In most cases, yes, I would agree. I think one kind of counterexample to that would be the attempted assassination of was it John Paul? Was it the second?
yeah,
it was the one right before. There was an attempted assassination by a guy who it turned out was just a lone wolf. Like he had mental problems. He was crazy.
Yes.
He acted by himself. But in the United States
and
probably
became friends
places,
with the Pope afterwards when he was in prison. The Pope
right? The Pope pardoned him or forgave him and all that
Yeah.
sort of stuff. Yeah, right. So but like he acted alone from all the evidence that was ever gathered on this guy. He acted alone. But if you look at the news that was going on in the U.S. at the time, there was this huge conspiracy that he was working for Russia, and he was trying to assassinate the Pope to destabilize the West, and and bring in the godless communists and all this sort of stuff, which obviously wasn't true, and there was never any evidence to substantiate or corroborate that idea, but it still ran for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like obviously, no one really talks about it nowadays because no one really cares. I mean, but it was very. I think in terms of like the impact of that assassination attempt, it was a bit lower, than like a president getting shot, even still. But still, there were conspiracy theories around it.
To make this a little bit more entertaining, this happens with famous people or people in power. At the moment, we're seeing the exact same thing with a certain guy who gets convicted. Convicted of 34 counts. I forgot where it was, but this guy apparently is kind of an influential guy in U.S. politics, and now it's all part of the political game. It's not that he committed...
It's a very influential orange.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's not that he committed crimes. It's not that he has committed more crimes than just this, because there's been a list of crimes that he's committed.
He's in currently other court cases that are going on against him right now. So
yes. I mean,
we care about law and order, except when we don't.
Yes, the party of law and order. But so now it's all part of the political game. And the fun part is, so he got convicted 34 times, and then the son of his opponent got convicted of 3 things, which is worse than the 34 because reasons in politics. The son isn't the son isn't even in politics, but apparently it's all his dad's fault.
It's exactly worse. Like I've seen the Republican pundits saying that Hunter Biden's conviction is actually also an anti-Trump conspiracy, because Hunter Biden is like a sacrificial lamb to say like, oh, the law is balanced because we convicted Trump and we also convicted Hunter Biden. So it's all just a conspiracy to make law seem neutral, even though it's not neutral. It's always anti-Trump, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, he's been claiming this. He's been claiming that corrupt government since he and his followers attempted to overturn the government several years ago. So that was cool. We loved that. Yeah, he when he did a coup, or did an attempted coup. Sorry, he didn't do the coup. He did the attempted coup. Yeah. And that another one, which is another aspect of that, right? There, the conspiracy is that these were the conspiracies that these were people who were like FBI agents, or they were like leftist actors or whatever, who were pretending to look like conservatives, and except that they are in jail now, and they were posting on Twitter that they were invading the Capitol when it was happening, and
there's another point about the consistently inconsistencies of conspiracy theories. Like they believe that the people at January 6th were like, as you said, they were like secret FBI agents. But they also believe the people arrested are falsely arrested for...
yes.
Before they were FBI agents, they were all Antifa. Remember? Because that was...
they are Antifa and FBI agents.
And FBI, yes.
Well, if you look at, for instance, because Kevin Sorbo was hilarious when this happened. He was live tweeting, basically. If you look at the earliest tweets that he put out, him and every other conservative was like, yes, the Americans are making their voices heard. Yeah. And then as it turned out that what they were doing was actually super illegal, and very much a coup, that suddenly became, Must have been the FBI and
Yeah.
Antifa.
It wasn't the Patriots who did this. It was the anti-patriots who did this.
Which,
Was
because
it?
like for one thing, I'm not aware of anyone. I'm not aware of there being any like known examples of someone who was in the crowd who turned out to be like an actually Antifa or an FBI agent. You know who you do see? You see a bunch of conservatives, like you see Chaya Raichik, the Libs of TikTok woman, the dude who had the horns was like a Nazi.
The shaman or
The
something.
shaman,
Like
he was just a straight up
shaman
Nazi.
guy.
The dude
Yeah.
who like went
Our-
into Pelosi's office and put his feet on her desk, also a conservative. Like, where were they? Where were the agents?
Our favorite midget, Greg Locke.
Was he there?
Yes, and he was caught
Dang.
on a few cameras as well, which he was very proud of until he said it was all FBI and Antifa. You were
Right,
there.
of course. Yeah, it's very funny. It's like where were they then? Where were the where were the agents if all we're seeing on camera are all the conservatives, unless the conservatives are themselves the Antifa, which maybe I guess I don't know.
This is the problem
anyway,
with conspiracy theories. They're not very consistent usually. They will have
that's the thing,
contradicting
right? The
things,
inconsistency of it.
claiming to keep the conspiracy going, and it just doesn't work.
It's not like the purpose of the conspiracy theory is not to create a new consistent narrative. Obviously, it's all about denying a conclusion that they happen to dislike, and they will throw whatever sticks on it to deny it, even though whatever they throw at it contradict each other. It doesn't matter. They will just throw more shit at it to make it go away, or they try to make it go away. Yeah.
Another one is another example of why their conspiracy theories are so popular is explaining unlikely events, and I feel like we kind of covered that with the COVID thing. Coping with threats. So, like a recent example was the boat, the ship that crashed into the Baltimore Bridge, and people were not a lot of people, but a few people, and I do actually have people in my daily life who did in fact claim this to me. Claim that the boat would intentionally hit the bridge to cause it to collapse because like it was the first step of an invasion or something, like I guess. Obviously, of course, that's totally wrong. The captain of the ship.
Freezing again.
I'm going to get through this point and then I'll refresh. The captain of the ship actually called ahead to the police in Baltimore or the Coast Guard or whoever to tell them that the ship had lost control. So like what the terrorists called ahead to get all the people off the bridge so they could slam into the bridge, like that's the narrative, I guess. I don't know, because ultimately the only people who died were like
it's for plausible deniability, Jackson. That's all.
Of course. Right, and then obviously there was never an attack on Baltimore, like that just didn't materialize. So it's like it's inane. Okay, I'm gonna refresh and try this again. This time it was only 20 minutes. That's kind of wild.
So
it doesn't happen for Peter. It only happens for Jackson. I don't know why.
No, it happens for me as well. So if it was only Jackson, then I could say, okay, just stick around because on my end it's good.
And I do want to point out, Smitty makes a good point. Yes, Hunter was convicted. He was convicted because on one of the gun forms you have to put that you don't do drugs. And he's on video, of course, like, doing crack and hanging out with prostitutes or whatever.
Jackson, what they didn't get was the laptop.
That's
How
true.
could they miss this?
Another series. That is another like series of conspiracies, because the initial conspiracy was that this laptop like contained information about like it was like child stuff that supposedly Hunter Biden was looking at, and it was turned over to some random like computer shop in, I think it was in New York, if I remember correctly. That was the initial claim, and then Rudy Giuliani, one of Trump's attorneys, had also claimed, who's now also completely broke from all of the lawsuits against him, which is very funny. So he claimed that he came in possession of the laptop, which is a federal crime if he's carrying around a
Yes.
laptop that has like child material on it. So that would mean he was breaking federal law. And then, that conspiracy just kind of evaporated, right? Like the whole laptop thing just evaporated when it came out that like, oh well, now it's, I mean, sort of, it kind of morphed into like, well, he's getting money for Joe so that they could do deals with other countries, and that wasn't true. There's never been any evidence of that. And now it turns out that like that yes, he did lie obviously on this form that he's in possession of a gun while he was doing drugs, whatever, which you can't do in the U.S. according to this form. So he is convicted based on that.
So the laptop with the child stuff on it, that came into possession of the guy who famously went into a bedroom with a young girl in a movie and then started to rearrange part of his lower anatomy on the bed. You can't write this stuff, right? You can't make this. You can't make this up. The fact that
what this whole ordeal tells me is never to vote for Hunter Biden. Joe, on the other hand, yeah, I'll probably vote for Joe. But Hunter Biden, I'll never vote for Hunter Biden.
Yeah.
So it's very funny that all happened, and yeah. So he was actually convicted, on credible charges, just like Trump was also convicted on credible charges. I feel like you have to acknowledge that, right? Like, but of course they won't do that, right? It's going to be, it's fake when it's against Trump, but when it's against Hunter, it's like just enough people do the right thing that they're able to convict the right person sometimes, but other times they get overpowered by the deep state.
But I also don't buy the fact that I do some Trump supporters actually believe that Trump is innocent, probably, but I don't buy that most of them believe it. I think most will say, most actually are aware that Trump did it, but they just don't care, or they don't care either way. They simply don't care whether Trump did it or not.
I think a great deal of Trump's following now can consider him one of them.
So let me put some numbers to that. Half of Americans think Trump's guilty verdict was correct. So a full 50% of Americans think that it was, and then 49%, according to almost as many, 49% think he should end his 2024 presidential campaign as a result. However, his favorability has remained stable at 31%. So what does that tell you? So at any rate, and that's why I think you shouldn't trust polls, especially this far out. I don't think we should, but anyway. At any rate, so clearly, to your point, Nestlig, people do think that this is a serious issue, that he was in fact correctly convicted, which is funny because Michael Cohen was convicted on like the same exact charges. So of course, if it worked for him, it's going to work for Trump. That's right. So another the fourth aspect of it is like disputing mainstream politics. So conspiracy theories are often used to dispute mainstream political interpretations. They're conspiratorial groups use such narrative to claim minority status. So they claim that they're the ones who are being like ostracized.
The persecution complex, yeah.
Persecution complex, yeah. So
which is like again that is also true for the creationists, like they are persecuted by academia, and what else? Also RFK Jr. also persecuted by basically everybody who criticizes him on vaccine bullshit.
Yeah, he's crazy. Yeah, his group, the I think it's called the Children's Health Defense is the name of his organization. They argue not just that vaccines, cause autism, but also that cell phones cause brain cancer, like glioblastoma, which is a very serious brain cancer. And we actually looked at several papers, if I remember correctly, when we did our video on RFK, and the papers don't show any increase in, or any statistically significant increase in the existence of glioblastomas. So there really doesn't seem to be any evidence in favor of that, which, I mean, this is the same guy who, thought methyl and ethyl mercury were the same thing. So, we can't really expect too much out of them.
Like, if I'm not mistaken, like most signals from cell phones, like, are radio waves.
They're radio, right? Exactly. So how would that impact your like nucleotides? I don't know. I do not know.
And should we be concerned about the microwave background radiation from the Big Bang, or what about that?
Yeah, right. Like, if it's microwaves, then, or sorry, if it's radio waves, then you also like can't turn on the radio in your own home, I guess. So I don't know. So, like, what can? Oh, also, I do want to point out one little side note on
would it help,
thing.
Jackson, if we try to explain to them, then if it's radio waves, you might want to turn off the Wi-Fi, so they can't get on the internet and confuse other people anymore. I mean,
well, they already think that like 5G is like trying to mess with their brains or whatever. So yeah.
That's the mark of the beast, Jackson. We all know this. That's the mark of the beast. And I forgot.
It's also frustrating. Like sorry.
No,
sorry, Peter. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I have to go check. So I'm not butchering this. So carbon is required for all life. Carbon has 6 protons, 6 neutrons, and 6 electrons. That's 666. That's the mark of the beast. So if you want to go with that, make sure you don't have any carbon in your body. Remove all of it.
Right. Yeah, I think you can do that, but only once.
Well, that would be enough, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I do want to point out one little thing on. Oh, actually, Nessa, you said frustrating.
It's one thing I recently saw like a TikTok of somebody telling a story about like, oh, I got skin cancer from for like not putting enough sunscreen on my skin, and so basically raising awareness of sunlight that can cause skin cancer. And there are people in the comment section denying that sunlight can cause skin cancer, and I hope I won't ever find a person who will both say that radio waves can cause skin cancer, but sunlight cannot cause skin cancer.
Right.
That's like now you're taking all the fun away from perennial sunning. Perineum sunning.
No.
Sorry, I mean.
No.
Yeah, this takes me back to a show that I did with Scientist Mel where we covered this part. I mean,
gosh, I wonder how Scientist Mel is doing. I was thinking about her the other day.
Yeah, like there's also one famous actress. She played what's the character again in like Iron Man.
Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yes, she denied that sunlight can be harmful because she says, "Look, I don't believe anything natural can be harmful to you." That's literally what she said.
In all fairness,
she's the goop.
Yeah,
so eating rocks can't hurt you.
Yeah. Sticking rocks into places where they shouldn't be, not a good thing. Selling candles that smell like your vajayjay, also no.
Right. Yeah.
That's the person we're talking about here, right? That we did a show on her as well. Which
Yeah,
But
which
also about Robert F. Kennedy. Like I saw recent news that Robert F. Kennedy apparently has suffered from mercury poisoning because he eats too much tuna sandwiches, too many of them, and he has mercury poisoning from that, and he complains about mercury in vaccines.
that's pretty wild. But yeah, that
Yeah,
mercury in fish is really bad. Bioaccumulation of harmful mercury in fish is pretty bad. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
God,
Like it's
he's such a wild one. You know.
And there's also another thing to mention about something ironic about RFK Jr. is that he, like, you all know that his voice is a bit funny.
Yes.
He has spasmodic dysphonia, if I pronounce it correctly. It's a condition that affects his muscle in his voice. And the way it's not a treatment, but it's like an experimental treatment. It may or may not work, but he gets periodic injections of Botox to relax his
Right.
muscle in his voice box. And Botox, the active ingredient in Botox, is the botulinum toxin from the bacterium that causes botulism. It's the single most toxic substance known to mankind, and he injects himself with that substance.
Well, this is the same guy who had a worm in his brain. So I mean, you know, at this point, what could really hurt him, right? So yeah. So okay, I do want to talk briefly about the anti-vax conspiracy, because I think that one's very funny. H Bomber guy did a phenomenal video on the anti-vax movement. Andrew Wakefield was kind of the guy who pioneered the newest version of that, which started in 1998. That was when he published the article in the Lancet that basically fueled everything. Now, what's funny about that article is, one, the sample size is like 12 kids, and I think, what is it, like 4 of them he claims have or had the affliction, which was wrong on review, but whatever. So 0 of his original patients had the affliction that he claimed. But also, he didn't claim that vaccines cause autism. He claimed specifically the measles vaccine caused autism.
The MMR, I think, measles, mumps,
Yes,
and
it was
rubella.
just the measles part of the MMR vaccine.
Oh, just the measles part of the. Right.
Yes, and the reason he claimed that was he had his own measles vaccine he wanted to sell to pharmaceutical companies.
Oh.
But wait for it. It gets better. The measles vaccine that he was going to sell to the pharmaceutical industry was made from the blood or bone marrow, one of those, of a guy that he knew, who was a co-author on that original Lancet paper. So this guy wanted to take his blood and use that as the measles vaccine.
It's also irony. The same people who won't take vaccines trust the guy who wanted to put his own vaccine on the market.
And then shortly thereafter, so basically after the newspapers picked that story apart and he got disbarred, or that's not the right word. He got
license taken away.
His license removed. There you go. Basically, he has his license taken away and everything. Then he was like, actually, all vaccines cause autism. It wasn't just the measles vaccine.
Well, if I am going down, I'm going down all the way. Baby.
I'm taking all of you with me. Yeah.
The entire ship is going down. Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys should look up H Bomber Guy's video on it. H Bomber Guy. If you guys haven't seen it, I highly just watch anything H Bomber Guy puts out. They're all fantastic videos. The one on plagiarism we referenced in one of our recent videos. We made a joke about parasites tend to stop making things for themselves. If you don't believe us, H Bomber Guy did a 4-hour video on it. Which I thought,
your story about the Wakefield, how he Your story reminded me of something else about. Do you know the guy who invented PCR, like polymerase chain reaction?
I don't know about him. No.
I forgot his name. How was it called again? Let's see here. Maybe somebody in the live chat can remember.
You want me to look it up? Who invented?
Gary Mullis. Gary Mullis.
Okay.
And if you look him up, he's a PCR. Like it's like one very important technology. I think you're also familiar with PCR, right? It's a way to amplify DNA.
Yeah, I know it. Yeah, it is.
It's been. But he's also a very crazy guy. Like he's an AIDS denier.
Well,
He
doesn't
believe
denies climate change. He does astrology. Believes the paranormal. Okay.
Yeah, I also remember a story about him having told people that he has been visited by a raccoon from outer space.
What?
I mean, if you're gonna be visited from a raccoon anywhere, might as well be from outer space. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this guy thought that Guardians of the Galaxy was real?
Basically, yeah.
He recounts his late night encounter with a glowing raccoon that spoke to him, addressing him as Doctor.
Well, I mean, it could be real because in Guardians of the Galaxy, the raccoon comes to kidnap Kevin Bacon. So I mean, maybe that actually happened. We don't know.
Yeah, so he's one example of what has been termed Nobel disease or Nobel laureate syndrome. Basically, when people win the Nobel Prize or just become a Nobel laureate, which is kind of like the highest honor you can be in like any field, is you could be, or for any, I guess for any scientific field, right? Because like the Pulitzer is for literature, right? So so essentially, once you get like Nobel laureate, even if you're just considered for Nobel Prize, you're at the top of the game, right? You've won, and so people in that position tend to think, oh, well, I am very smart, which is true, but they take that to mean I therefore know everything.
Yes.
Right. And so,
but about. Oh, sorry. You go finish.
Oh, you go ahead.
It's about his invention. Like PCR can be used in many different applications. You can basically also use it as a diagnostic tool. You can have basically detect specific pieces of DNA in a sample. Like, oh, if my sample has a virus, for example, HIV virus. If I have a sample from somebody, I do PCR on it very specifically, such that if I see a signal, then it's positive for HIV, the human immunodeficiency virus. But Gary Mullis, who is an AIDS denier, he doesn't believe that HIV causes AIDS. He says that his own invention cannot be used as a diagnostic tool. But in his own patent for PCR, it explicitly mentions that it can be used as a diagnostic tool, contradicting himself, basically.
I'm looking up Nobel disease on Wikipedia right now. So like, here's a couple other examples. James Watson, so as in of Watson and Crick.
Oh yeah.
Was super racist. Nicholas Tinbergen, the guy who was like he basically was involved in the working out of like animal social patterns, things like that. He was Richard Dawkins' like advisor. That Nicholas Tinbergen basically believed that like autism was the result of mothers who don't love their children enough. Of course, I mentioned Gary Mullis. Luc Montagnier, the guy who co-discovered HIV, was basically believed in homeopathy. Yeah. So, of course, I mean, a lot of people have believed in like, AIDS denialism and stuff like that. And Anyway, what I do want to for our last like 15 minutes is I want to talk about ways we can sort of combat conspiracy theories. Yeah, I think we spent so much time talking about them. Let's not talk about what can we do to dispense with conspiracy theories. So again, the article, the UNESCO, or the handbook here, talks about a few things you can do. So one, most obviously, kind of what we do here is just fact-based debunking.
Yeah,
So
fact checking works.
Right, fact check it. So what we do on this channel, or what we have done, and what we will continue to do in the future on other topics, is we'll take like a video and we'll pick it apart piece by piece and show why it's wrong across the board on these different things. So that's one way you can do it. You can just simply show how they're wrong, and you can hope that the people who are listening will hear that and go, oh, okay, that makes sense. I see where they went wrong, and I'm not going to hold to this belief anymore. Another thing you could do is logic-based debunking. So just showing, for instance, not even necessarily that like the facts are wrong, but showing, for instance, that like their arguments are mutually contradictory. So you don't even have to show that they're wrong per se. You just have to show that they contradict other arguments that they're giving. So the logic doesn't follow, or the conclusion doesn't follow from its premises. Or for instance, hey, I saw something. Well, okay, just because you saw it or you think you saw something, that doesn't mean that thing is actually true. Doesn't mean we should actually have to, we have to believe that, therefore. Providing links to fact checkers. I feel like that's kind of the same thing. Source-based debunking, or empathy-based debunking. That's another one that you can use, which I don't see really too often, because
it may be a way to avoid the backfire effect. Because if you shove facts in somebody's face, that can often it depends on the way you present it. It can have a negative effect if you are nobody likes being called stupid. Because,
right.
Of course,
yes. It's when they start digging in their heels. When I keep referring to my own video, which I shouldn't, but when I was talking to this guy about evidence for demons, during the intake or the pre-show, he said, what are we going to do? And I said, I'm not going to do a debate. We're just going to have a conversation. And one of the first things he said, because, debates, there's always confusion about who won. And I told him, conversations like this aren't about winning or losing. It's about figuring out what is true and what isn't. And if you're wrong and I'm right, that doesn't mean you lost. It's the opposite, because you won. You now know something that you believed to be right and you now know is wrong. There's only winning in a conversation like this. And that's why a lot of the times when I see people go after other people, it might not have the effect you desire if you could go around and call them stupid and idiots. Right. And I mean, I get it. It's frustrating if you have to do it over and over and over and over and over again. But keep in mind, the person you're talking to now, they're hearing you for the first time, while you may have said this thousands of times. For them, it's new.
Don't we know?
Right?
Yeah.
So...
that's why we also don't, when we bring on a creationist, for example, on our show, we will start out as being very cordial, of course. By default,
I mean, it's not just starting out. The only reason to counter, to come up with less respectful behavior is if you receive less than respectful behavior. And I'm it's one of the things that I need to still work on, because I mirror people's behavior, and then it can go to a dumpster fire really, really, really quick. But if you want to teach people, you need to have at least some amount of compassion and trying not to insult people, because that's never going to help.
And you want to make clear that you are listening to them, even if you don't agree with them. Of course, you don't agree, but that is clear. But you have to make it clear that you are not just dismissing them out of hand. You have to listen to them, even though you've already heard the same argument again and again and again from somebody else. You still have to make it clear that you are listening to the other person.
And you should listen, because that's the only way you can figure out what their position is. Because otherwise, you might be fighting a straw man, and that won't help you either.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, I agree. It can be difficult to recognize that this is the first time this person is hearing this rebuttal from you. Even though we've had this same argument 10 million times.
Yeah, I remember, like, sorry, like a slight criticism against you, just a slight bit. Like, I remember when we talked.
That's not allowed on my channel.
Like, I remember when we were talking to like a Bible Radio guy a couple of months ago, when he began laying down the second law of thermodynamics argument. Like, your immediate reaction was like, "Oh no!" Like that, and I was like, "Oh, just let him talk for now, then we will respond." Like that's how I approach things.
No, and I hear you. I for one, I just want to point out, I do not apologize for saying, "Oh no." That was I think unintentional. He said, "Well, the second law of thermodynamics." I was just like, just an exhale of, oh no.
Yes.
But yeah.
But I would advise to avoid even those reactions, because it can be off-putting to the other person if you react like that.
I do want to point out, though, with regard to him, I agree with you, Neslik. I agree. I do want to point out, though, that he's now, like, he doesn't even argue about thermodynamics anymore. It seems he's moved on to the har and yaya tactic.
Yeah.
I guess you've completely,
maybe
you've like helped him,
we'll see,
understand why that's wrong, possibly. But now he's just moved on to doing when we had David on, I really, really, really wanted to talk about that. That was like, I thought he was going to come on and we were going to talk about that, but of course, I let the guest pick the topic. So, which, by the way, I want to complain for a moment. He was whining on Twitter the other day that I like ambushed him in the conversation when we let him pick the topic. So,
like Terry, or David Terry, right? Or on Twitter.
What's it?
His Twitter name was David, aka Terry.
Did we call him Terry, or did we call him David? I think it was Terry. I think we called him Terry.
All right.
Anyway, I'm sorry. Yeah. But
never mind.
But yeah, like, how do you? He claimed we ambushed him on the topic he chose, which I found very funny.
Yeah, it's frustrating. Also, like, it's very clear that he was just googling things on the fly, desperately trying to search for an answer. Like, if you are going to do that, just admit that. Oh, I actually don't know this. I will maybe look at it into a bit further, and I will come back to you later about this.
Yeah.
That would be much better, and there's no problem with that when you do that. But some that's the one of the frustrating part. Some people cannot do that, and that's frustrating. Yes.
And at the end of the conversation, I thought that we'd made a breakthrough, because he was like, "Okay, I will go and I will read these papers and stuff, and I'll get back to you." And then he just came back on Twitter and he was very antagonistic and he was acting like an idiot. And so I was like, whatever, I don't care. So I muted him. I don't have to hear him anymore.
I'm seeing, like, I'm also following Sam, the scientist.
He actually has been messaging me. He messaged me yesterday.
And I see his feed, and I see him like schooling this guy like constantly, like nope.
Sam actually messaged and was like, and asked if I'd be interested in like, or Peter and I hosting a talk between Sam and Terry. And I said, I don't care. I'm fine with doing that. So if they agree to do that, then I'd happily have them on.
Yes. I
Another
will
thing,
be happy to give I will be happy to give up my spot for Sam. Yes.
another thing that you could also do with regard to like how to talk to conspiracy theorists. One, obviously, is avoid ridicule, as Nestle
Mhm.
said. Show empathy. So understand that a lot of times, like they're not doing this to be evil, right?
Yes. Yeah.
People don't believe most people. Uh,
Mhm.
Grifters who run like big channels where they make money but don't believe
Oh
anything
yeah.
they say, that's one thing. But like your average person really truly believes what they say. They're not saying it for the lulz or whatever. They're saying it because they
Mhm.
believe it. And so obviously talking to them in a way that empathizes with their experience with them as a human being is obviously important. Um, Another way is to like affirm critical thinking. So to say like, one thing that they like to say is, um, "Oh, we are all about facts and logic," and point out, "Okay, well, here are some facts, or here is some logic, or what have you," and affirm throughout the course of the conversation that we both have we both want to affirm critical thinking. You know, not that it's not just for show or whatever.
And and
And then finally,
and also,
mhm.
so street epistemology is a great way to interact with people
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
this. If
Okay.
you know the conspiracy they hold to, by asking specific questions so they can rethink whether or not it makes
Yes.
sense for
That's a
them,
very good thing.
it is a very good tool. But that
It's almost like instead of giving them the conclusion, you like gently guide them to
you
come to
hand
the
them the
conclusion
tools
by
to,
themselves. Yeah.
yes, you hand them the tools to
Yes.
get to the correct conclusion, and it's
Yeah.
still,
And that's basically. Yeah.
yeah, it's one of the best ways to do it, and one of the least aggressive ways to do it. You're not
Mm.
going to insult people
That's
by
also
asking them questions.
that's also the approach I tried with Bible Radio. Like one
Mm-hmm.
of my points that I wanted to make against him was showing that on the one hand you have a tank of water completely homogeneous in temperature, and another tank you have differences in temperature basically, and because of the differences in temperature, the water is convecting because of the differences in temperature. And I was trying to, instead of explaining to him why one is lower and like the convecting water is low entropy and uh, the water in equilibrium is high entropy, I like basically did asked him questions step by step by step to so he could come to the same conclusion basically.
Mm-hmm.
But it unfortunately that didn't work. It didn't work out in the end. But yeah.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, you did your best.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, either he can accept the facts that
Yeah.
you're giving him or not. That's ultimately up to
Mm.
him. There's nothing we can do about that.
All right.
Um, it also people who so trusted messengers are another way to get messages out or to combat conspiracy
Mhm.
theories. So people who formerly held to a conspiracy but don't anymore. Um, so like there's a guy I follow on Twitter. I can't remember what his name is. It's like Lee something. What is his name? Or it has Lee in the name. Oh, I can't remember what his name is.
Mark Linus.
Nope, that's not it.
Hmm. Like I remember Mark Linus. Like he was, and also I think he was also like a climate skeptic before, and he was also an anti-GMO activist. No, sorry, he was not a climate skeptic. He was an anti-GMO activist before, but no longer is. The Mark
Mm-hmm.
Linus, and also Penn Teller. Penn Teller was also was a climate denier,
Mm.
but now is no longer a climate denier. Penn Teller, like from oh no, not Penn Teller, Penn and
Yeah,
Teller from the
Teller,
show.
yeah.
Yeah, from the show. Yeah.
Yeah, it's at any rate. So yeah, so uh, people
Mm-hmm.
who formerly are, and of course we get a lot of that, like in the like the atheist community or whatever, or people who are like, well, I was formerly religious or whatever, and then left the faith or what have you, or people who are formerly creationist. If they accept evolution
Mhm.
now, they're like, yeah, I used to be a creationist. I watched Kent Hovind or what have you, and then I started doing the research, the digging myself, and then I realized, oh, hey, he's totally wrong on everything. That totally that happens, and those can often be very powerful um, stories or testimonials, right? Even though it isn't evidence itself, it can be a powerful testimonial for getting people to leave their conspiracy. But also, like, it can be easier to move someone, like to shift someone like slightly left or right if the person they're talking to is just slightly left or right of them, right?
Mhm.
It's much more difficult to get someone who's like on the far right and to have someone who's on the far left try to convince them that like everything they know is wrong. Like you're not going to do that.
Mhm.
It's very difficult because
Yeah.
you're having to like completely um, underpin or change what underpins like their entire like moral philosophy and how they view the world and everything. And like there's way too much going on there. You're not going to do that probably. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
you might, maybe it's
I get,
possible, I guess.
but of course there are even like ex-creationists may still believe in God and such. Of course, yeah. So
Well, sure, of
they
course,
don't necessarily convert to or or convert to atheism or something like that.
of course, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But there's, like one question I have, like, are you almost finished with the document, or do you need to get some stuff
No, I mean that's pretty
through?
much it with the document. So,
All right. So
go
like
ahead.
my one question that I have is like, are like the online debates efficacious? Like debates on modern day
Hmm.
debate, for example, are they a good thing or a bad thing? I tend to mostly think they are not good.
No, they're a
Those
bad
types of
thing.
things.
I,
Yeah.
I think debates in
I mean,
general are because
it depends. I don't agree that debates in general are a bad thing, but it depends, and I think it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
I think at some point, like, I'd like to put out a video that's just like what I think about debating,
I
because I have different thoughts, and I am afraid that some of them are contradictory, and I would like for them to not be contradictory. I think in general, I think it depends, right? I think if you're going to have a debate, you should only debate if the idea is something that is actually prevalent as a belief, right?
Hmm.
If you're finding the one person, that's why I don't care about like the mud fossil university stuff, for instance.
Or
Like,
flat Earth, like you don't debate flat Earth or something like that. Yeah.
well, I don't know. The flat Earth there's a bit more with flat Earth, but like the mud fossil dude, for instance, like it's one guy, right?
Yeah.
It's just one dude, and if it's
You're just giving him attention he doesn't deserve. But of
right.
course, it's the same. The same is true for the
hold
creationist as
on,
well. But yeah.
Although
in all
creationists kind
fairness,
of have quite a bit of a following in the U.S. It's like
Yeah.
upwards of 40% of
Right.
Americans think that like creationism is true. So
in all
what do you say,
fairness,
Peter?
it is fun to watch at times because if you sometimes want to have a break from people like Kent Hovind who are just in it for the money, or Ken Ham, and just go with something completely nuts and have your mind. I mean,
So I
And
think
also,
an example.
and
also
the dangerous.
the doctor refusing to debate RFK Jr. on Joe Rogan. Like that was also a good thing to deny debating the RFK. Yeah.
So this Amaya just pointed this out. This guy does have 200K followers.
Okay, but like, do
It's
any
a-
of those people really believe him? I've never met anybody who like believes the mud fossil stuff. Literally no one, like zero. Online or in person, I've never met anyone
Yeah.
outside of like Dapper and a few people in our community who talk about him. Like I don't know anyone. Maybe there are people, but my point is simply this: if it's a
Yeah,
belief
so
that
hold on. I have to.
hold on, let
Oh,
me finish.
be there, be
Go
there.
ahead.
Let
Go
Jackson
ahead.
finish.
If it's a
Mhm.
belief that actually has a fair proportion of society, then I think it's okay to debate that. Like if people think if like 25% of American citizens think the moon landing was a hoax, I think that's a topic that you should have people who hash that out. If it's like one person, 1% of society thinks something, I don't think so. Sorry, go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, so there are several creationists who claim that a certain mountain, I think it's in Texas, is a tree stump. So
Okay.
it's there are more people who claim not all of his stupidity, but there are people who claim the same thing. I don't know if you remember the guy that I had on my channel who claimed that dinosaurs were the result of the Nephilim mating with lizards. So there's all kinds of stupidity going around. So while not everyone might be as far out there as the mud fossil guy, because he's found fossils that span entire continents. So I mean, just imagine one of those standing up and stamping on the earth. What would happen?
Right. It would destroy it, yeah.
We would be in a different solar system, I think. Something like that.
Right.
But
I do also think ones that are like topics that are very, I don't know. I wouldn't debate anyone, I think, on someone if it's like a topic that is very harmful, right? If it's targeting like a particular group of people, I think I just wouldn't do it. But however, at the same time though, when there are people, or maybe I would say like, I'm not the person to debate this, you should debate someone else on it or something, I don't know. But because I think I wouldn't want to give them
it's
time.
Okay, like the word like about the RFK Jr. versus how's the scientist also called again? The doctor who refused to debate RFK on Joe Rogan.
I know who you're talking
Hotes, or
I think that's his name. Yeah.
Yeah, Hotes. Like he refused to debate, and I would agree, especially because he is an actual scientist. He's an expert, and most experts are very poor debaters. They know their stuff, but in the debate, you need to be rhetorically proficient.
You have to be light on your feet
to deal with someone like RFK. And I think some people propose that instead of Hotes, someone like Jon Stewart would debate RFK Jr. And I think that is actually a much better idea. Like, even though I personally don't like debates, I would rather have someone who is actually rhetorically proficient, like Jon Stewart, tackling RFK Jr. Yeah,
or like having someone like, I don't know, like Professor Dave debating, a topic instead of a doctor in that field, right? So that would be.
Although I do have problems with how Dave handled that debate.
Well, okay, I mean, fair enough. But like, I'm just giving you an example. I think it would be or Aaron, for instance, having like like one of us or Aaron or someone else who's in like the YouTube debate sphere who does like a lot of evolution outreach and stuff like that. Having one of us debate a creationist instead of like an evolutionary biologist who will know more than us, but as you said, isn't rhetorically skilled. Like that person probably wouldn't do as well. I remember watching a debate with Jay Weil, who's a creationist, and he writes like textbooks for like AIG. He did a debate with a dude who was like an actual paleoanthropologist, and to my remembrance, the paleoanthropologist didn't really do that well overall. He didn't respond to that many things that Weil said, and the reason for that was, he got so bogged down on like individual points that he didn't move on and didn't address a lot of things. So
that's the gish gallop. You overwhelm your opponent by so many claims, and the scientists, the experts, are concerned with every single detail. They don't have the time to convert that into a neat package for a debate. It's very difficult for an expert to handle something like that.
And that's one of the reasons why I am against the debate, because you will run into that in any debate. I don't think I've ever seen a debate where it hasn't happened, where people are summing up points, and then for the opponents, it's completely impossible to debunk all of them. And that's where...
Oh, I mean, I would cite my debates. I think in every debate I've been in where someone tried to gish gallop me, I shut it down pretty well. I mean, look at my Standing for Truth debate. he hasn't been opposite me a discussion in 5 years, right? I think
I
he
also
saw pretty well that he didn't do very well.
like
Um,
he also there's just a funny story about too, like many years ago, like in 2018, I talked to this guy, and
mhm.
he challenged me to a debate several times, and I told him repeatedly like, no, I'm not interested in a debate. I would rather have like a written discussion so
Mhm. Yes.
we can hash out the details in uh, on our own time. We don't have to shout at each other in a debate. We can just
Right.
write each other, take the time to do the research and such and such. And he at some point he agreed to that, but then he backed down on that agreement and he ran away from me. Yeah.
Didn't long story short also like refuse to do the written like peaceful science thing or whatever?
I think I don't think he ever uh, answered to that. I put
Okay.
forward I put forward to him like, oh, if you want, we can discuss this in a forum somewhere. But
Mhm.
I don't remember him ever answering that
Well, right,
question.
and it's
Yeah.
way harder. And actually, Peter, I believe it was you who put this suggestion out there, and I think it's a phenomenal suggestion. Um, that like because in a live or sorry, not in a live debate, in a written debate, they can't go back on things they've said before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you have the evidence, they
Right.
already said it. And Peter suggested, I think was it following our Terry debate, that like he mentioned multiple different definitions for information, and we should like have a running tally on the screen or whatever. Of like, okay, so this is your definition. Okay, so and
Yes.
then like once he jumps from that to another one, we write the new definition down under it, and then we write the next new, yeah.
Kind of like a
And
whiteboard.
have a
Just make notes,
have like a
and you could actually do
yeah.
that wouldn't be a big deal. So you
Okay.
can you could use Discord or Twitter for that, and just have that put into OBS, and you would have the definition on screen the entire
Mhm.
time until it changes, and then everyone who's watching will see that we now have to change the definition.
Yes.
And
You
I've,
can
I've
also,
seen
if it's possible.
what on Twitter, Florida Line once sent me a video where someone actually did that. They had a real life whiteboard behind them and just wrote down things that the person said, because they had a conversation on some other medium, Twitter or Facebook or I don't know, and they completely
Mhm.
switched positions while they were arguing. So this guy actually wrote down everything until the person switched and said, "Do you see what I wrote down there? That was your definition, or that was your argument. You're now arguing for the exact opposite." So he then crossed it out, wrote the opposite underneath until we came to another flip, and we went back to. It is a
Right.
great tool to
Yeah.
have, and it's not even that difficult if
And you
if you
can,
That would
actually
be
want.
very
if,
fun.
if it's possible, you can also add like a little animation of a goalpost moving across the screen like that every
Well, I
time.
feel like that would be
That
antagonistic.
yeah,
if we
that's
did that.
that's.
Yeah.
I mean, I know why you would like that,
That'd be
but
very
I
funny.
don't think that
That'd be
would be.
very funny.
Yeah, it wouldn't
No,
be productive.
I am going. Sorry, I'm going against my own advice. I apologize. Yes,
But
yeah.
I do agree that would be very funny.
Mhm.
Any rate, okay, so we are now 10 minutes. I can words. We are 10 minutes past the mark. So thank you guys, thank you Nestle and Peter for being here
If
as
I
always.
This was
if I
fun.
may, well, there's one last thing I wanted to mention, if I may.
Shoot.
All right, like one advice I would have about like debating is, for all probabilities considered, you're probably not going to convince your opponent in a live
Sure.
debate like that.
Mhm.
So you have to consider the audience. The audience is who you are going to convince during the debate. So don't antagonize the audience.
But
Sorry,
that's
David,
but
Corina,
that's
don't do that.
that's also a good
Yeah.
reason not to antagonize your opponent, because
Also,
your
yeah,
audience
yeah.
will also dig in
call,
their
yeah.
heels if you do that.
Yeah,
So
good
Right.
call. Yes.
Sure.
All right, and that's my final note.
Okay. Alrighty. All right. So thank you guys for being here as always, and thank you everybody in the live chat for watching. And we will see everybody next time. So, bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.